Quick trigger warning, as this video is on mental health, I will be talking about themes such as anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide, sectioning and psychosis. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Katanga, where I try to keep you educated and entertained. So today's video is going to be on the mental health disparities for BAME women. Now, this is a project that I did earlier this year with my lab partner, Apoorva, for our psychiatry module. Now, Apoorva didn't want to be in the video today because she's a bit camera shy, but both of us did this research and thought that it was really important for this information to be out there. So I really hope you enjoy today's video. We're going to be talking about the prevalence of mental health in these communities, the reasons, the potential reasons behind these differences, the access to mental health that these communities have, and some solutions and things going forward. And why is it important to discuss this? Well, if you, like myself, are a healthcare professional either now or in the future, then we need to know the different challenges that some of our patients may have had to overcome to even come to our services or use our services. And if you are just not a healthcare professional but just are interested in psychiatry, or you are African, Caribbean, Asian, Arab, or an ally, then you want to just know this information so you can best help your people then. So let's get right into it. So let's start with the prevalence of mental health. A multi-city trial done by the University of Cambridge and a systematic review has repeatedly found that young Black females are the most common group to admit to A&E for self-harm. In England and Wales, Asian females are an at-risk group for suicide. The risk of psychosis, which is a mental illness that is so severe that you lose touch with reality, is 7 times higher in the Afro-Caribbean population compared to the white population. And therefore the risk of detention under the Mental Health Act from 2017 to 18, 4 times higher for people from the Afro-Caribbean group. But we'll get into that statistic a little bit more later. Now let's think about why we're seeing these stats. Is there something intrinsic in us that makes us more susceptible? Well, in psychiatry, we take a biopsychosocial approach, which basically means that an illness is due to biological, psychological, and social reasons. So let's break each of these down and look into why the BAME group, even though it's a diverse group of people from different backgrounds and ethnicities and cultures, have these higher risks. So the Adult Psychiatric and Morbidity Survey in 2014 saw that the biggest reasons for mental health: unemployment, living alone, or poor physical health. Among 16 to 24-year-olds, unemployment is highest in those from a Black background, where it's 26%, or those from a Pakistani background, where it is 23%, in comparison to white population, where the unemployment rate for that group is 11%. This ties in with discrimination, as multiple studies have shown that if you have a foreign sounding name, you're less likely to get callbacks and therefore more likely to stay unemployed. Another more frequent form of discrimination are microaggressions. Microaggressions have been shown to lead to increased anxiety, and microaggressions at work for Black women are often of an invisibility or a sexual nature. These microaggressions can lead to increased rates of anxiety, trauma, and depression. But quick side notes: number one, sometimes we call things microaggressions when really they're macroaggressions. So make sure that you're not minimizing your own pain or anybody else's pain. And two, even though the research has shown that the higher up the ladder you go, the microaggressions get worse and worse, we still need to aim for the stars, and that is on migration. So if you are a refugee or an asylum seeker, then you will have increased rates of anxiety and PTSD and depression because you are fleeing, you're separated from your family. You come here, you will be unemployed if you have asylum status, and difficulties in housing and the trauma that they're fleeing from. And even those who are migrating who are not refugees or asylum seekers, which is the majority, you still have a career setback where you're going to have to go into a job which might be lower than what you were used to in your home country. And also, if there's a language barrier, then you can feel isolated. And also the age-old go back to where you come from, which is just traumatic and not nice for anybody to go through. A protective social factor, however, in the BAME community is family. So there is a high sense of community, and that is a protective factor against mental health. However, when I was reading the blogs like from Humans of Bombay, Galdem, etc., a reoccurring theme was that the people who were having mental health issues felt that they couldn't talk to their family about it. So we really need to make sure that we take away this stigma that is often in our communities, so that, what's the point of having a massive, beautiful family if you cannot be real with them? We need to make sure that we improve that. Now, for the psychological factors, psychological is basically what is going on in your mind. One thing, if you are a child in these BAME communities, we all know that there is pressure to do well in school. And of course, this is great because this makes us flourish academically, but it can sometimes mean that we put our well-being on the back burner. Also, cultural expectations in social media. So for the Black woman, being angry or sassy, whenever any emotion is shown, can cause Black women to bottle up their emotions, and that is not good in the long run, and that can cause the increased anxiety and depression and the self-harm rates that we saw earlier. However, a psychological/social protective factor is religion. A lot of BAME individuals do believe in a religion, and that is a protective factor. Our biological includes the way that our brain is wired, drug use, any other comorbidities we have, so any other diseases that we have. And there is no biological difference between the ethnicities, okay? So no race is inherently stronger at dealing with stress than any other. There's no biological difference for the differences in the psychiatry, where we see the difference in the psychiatry stats. Now the statistics on accessing mental health services. As we saw in the University of Cambridge study earlier, Black women were the most likely to self-harm or to go to A&E because of self-harm. But that same study found that they were the least likely to engage in long-term health services. Psychiatry as well is already an under-resourced branch of medicine. So the people in the poorest boroughs are going to suffer the most when it comes to the psychiatric services. And if you look on the 2014 census, you see that like the poorest boroughs, e.g. Newham and Brent, which were more lower, are also the boroughs with the highest ethnic diversity index as well. So that might be a reason as to why these people are the least likely to engage in long-term services. Maybe the services just aren't available. Maybe it's some reservation from the patients themselves. Maybe, as I said before, if you can't talk to the family about it, then how are you going to tell them that where you're going every, for example, Wednesday, if you're going for counselling or you're going to see a psychiatrist? Pregnancy is something that not all women go through, but a lot of women do go through, and we have to think of that when we think about mental health, because postpartum depression has a prevalence of 17% in otherwise mentally healthy women. And postpartum depression has higher rates in the Middle East and Asia. I'm not sure about the Middle Eastern and Asian British women though living here, but those countries have the highest. However, studies have shown that the BAME women are least likely to be asked the mental health checkup questions at their baby checkups. So that is a real issue, and we need to make sure that we're asking all women at the baby checkups, whether you're a GP, so that'll probably be by their GP, how are you doing mentally? Look out for the baby blues, red flags. And in an American study, Black and Latina postnatal depression sufferers were the least likely to initiate and do a repeat prescription of their antidepressants as compared to white women. So I personally think I have a hunch that this is because of like BAME people's reservations towards medicine, especially when it comes to like psychiatric issues. But I don't know, comment down below if you agree with me, or do you think that maybe this is due to something else. And now sectioning. As mentioned earlier, Afro-Caribbeans seem to be getting sectioned at 4 times a higher rate than their white counterparts. Now, why is this? And let me first just define what sectioning is. So normally when people say sectioned, they mean Section 3 of the Mental Health Act. The Mental Health Act is the Mental Health Act is a set of rules as to how you deal with people when they're extremely mentally unwell. Section 3 is permitting the immediate detention against the person's will because they lack capacity. And lacking capacity means when you're so unwell that you're not making the decisions you would normally do, and you are probably a risk to yourself and others, so you need to be detained so you can get immediate treatment. So there's lots of paperwork to get that done, and it's not something that people take lightly at all. Like a doctor and a nurse have to sign it and everything. So yeah, it's not something that happens commonly, but we're seeing it is a higher rate for Afro-Caribbeans. Now, a study has shown that a black person and a white person coming in with the same symptoms, a black person is more likely to get sectioned. So there are some biases when it comes to that as to why we are overrepresented. So now I have to say, what can be done? What can we do about these statistics, and how can we better empower our people? Some of these things are already being put into motion, and some of these ideas me and Apoorva thought of as to how it can improve the situation. Data collection needs to be done and needs to be stratified correctly for each ethnicity, so that if we don't know that there's a problem, then we can't solve it. And that also, I would say to you, if you are ever a patient, please on forms when they tell you to put your ethnicity in, put it in correctly, or if you're other, then do write the other, because I know some people have reservations about this because they want to avoid bias, but it is really helpful when we know how diseases are affecting different groups accurately. NHS England also have a goal for their maternal health care that by 2024, 75% of BAME and deprived groups will have continuous maternal care. So like, you know, you won't have like different healthcare workers or different midwives visiting you. It will just be continuous, so that they can have like increased trust, so that that person will be able to better see for the red flags if they think that maybe somebody's mental health is decreasing during their pregnancy or after their pregnancy. We need to make sure that we always have translators in our clinics. I know sometimes it's hard to get a translator, but the GMC guidance, like the protocol, is to make sure that you have a translator if your patient's language is not that's not their first language, because it's even been shown, and I read this from, or I watched this in Dr. Hani's video, that basically if you're in a consultation and English is not their first language, sometimes you just think it's generalized pain, and then when you get a translator in, then the pain is really, really specific. So we could be missing, if we're missing even physical signs, then how are we ever going to be able to prioritize the mental health of our patients if or recognize that there might be some anxiety or depression if we can't even communicate to them properly? So a translator is always key, and we need to just be always one step ahead, because as we know, our patients are not always going to come to us and tell us that they're anxious or depressed. We have to get it out of them. And also another idea that we thought is to increase awareness. So maybe all medical students should try to have placements in more deprived areas, so that we can see the effects of like unemployment and migration and, you know, these type of things. My GP placement was in a place where I had a very high Sri Lankan population, and that was very eye-opening for me. That was just, I don't know how to describe it. Like, obviously I have Tamil friends, but to see a lot of Tamils, it was just really eye-opening. I can't really explain it, but when you see a variety of people from a variety of diseases, you just know that now everybody is susceptible to anything. If you get what I mean, I really rambled there, but I just really enjoyed that. And that leads on to the last point, which is humanization. So absolutely everybody, regardless of skin color, is human. None of us are superhuman, and none of us are stronger than any other race. So we all just need to be kind to each other, and need to always be on the lookout. And you never know what somebody is dealing with, so always just be kind. That's my video today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new. Please comment down below your thoughts, anything new that you learned, so that we can just start a conversation, a much needed conversation in the comments below. Make sure you like if you like the video, share and subscribe so you can join the family. And I'll see you later. Bye.